Okay. We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to, hi. Hi, I'm super excited for doing this call today. I think we have a lot of new DeSci joiners or people new to the space. As Molecule, we've been knocking around for a while, and I've been building, and it's just really, really great to see this traction building, and to see all these people interested in these scientific projects. We've been really, really excited. And then also today, we decided to invite some of the people behind the projects on Catalyst, so they can tell you a bit about them. If you decided to fund a project, you can sort of figure out what's happening. And if you are just interested in Catalyst in general, you can learn how it works. And if you are a researcher with a project that needs funding, then you can learn how to do that. As a maybe intro, is that over the past weekend, I think we managed to fund, or not we, but the community managed to fund over $1.1 million worth of science, which, if you ask me, it's pretty crazy, pretty incredible. And I think it's really cool to see sort of these systems creating very much a real world impact. So yeah, I thought we'd just get into that. Logan, do you want to introduce yourself and explain what your role has been in Catalyst? Oh, let me actually introduce myself first. I'm Ella. Sorry, I know I'm going in so hard. I'm Ella. I'm Molecule Scientific Communicator. I've been working on Catalyst for a long time with our amazing team. My particular job was sort of like helping build out materials and getting stuff really accessible, so that like all of you who wanted to participate and fund this research could understand what you were getting into. So that's kind of been my job. Logan has been a fantastic team member to me, so I'll let her answer how.
Thanks, Ella. Obviously, as you can see, we're all very excited. But my name's Logan. I'm the biotech operations manager at Molecule, and over the past kind of few months, been working very closely together with Ella, people like Daniel Barr and Dan, on getting their projects in shape, trying to figure out, what materials to prepare, what format should it be, what are people going to care about, who's even going to read all this stuff. So yeah, just trying to figure out the best way to communicate with people about the science, getting them interested, getting them informed, so that they can come to Catalyst and find something that they like and hopefully connect to a project that they're really passionate about. And in doing so, supporting a researcher who's also equally passionate about that work and enabling them to get to researching cures and kind of therapies that we're all waiting for. So super happy and excited to be here.
Amazing. Cool. Danny, do you want to give a short intro? So yeah, actually,
Sure.
I won't steal the thunder. You give it to us.
So hi, my name is Daniel Barr. I'm a researcher at Tel Aviv University. My passion and focus is on the molecular biology of aging. Did my postdoc at the NIH, my PhD at the Hebrew University. I'm also a member of the Ethereum community since the crowd sale, and kind of been very excited about this technology and many things that it enables. And it's great to be able to connect kind of the after our hobbies with the day job for the first time. So.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who don't know, I mean, Catalyst, we started building Catalyst maybe a little under a year ago. And Danny we launched a first version that is doesn't look anywhere like the version that we have up now. But Danny was one of the first researchers who was like, cool, I'm into this idea of connecting crypto and science, and uploaded his project and was one of our first beta testers. So has also kind of been a Catalyst OG. So I'm really excited to see that his project got funded. Okay, cool. Dan, as an advocate for Valley DAO, give us your spiel.
Yeah, cool. So I'm Dan Hussey. I've been in the DeSci space with Valley DAO for somewhere between 2 and 3 years now, serving as a founding member of Valley DAO. And we're a decentralized nonprofit whose mission is to support the translation of biotech to help the planet. And, what I'm passionate about, what makes me really happy is helping founders and scientists realize the impact of their inventions or their like super early stage startups, and, helping create like really useful products and services out of technology innovations. So yeah, my background's in biotech and deal making and patents, and like really excited to bring these like new technologies and these like interesting opportunities to a wider audience. And I'm just like so happy to see the outpouring of support from the crypto community, and like how the amazing like infrastructure and program that Catalyst is putting together. And this is just such an exciting time. I'm like really happy to be here.
Amazing. Yay. Thank you. We've got Jonathan who's joined us, but I see he's got his camera mute off. So we'll let him join in his own time. But I think what I wanted to do before we jumped into like all of these projects and discussing, I know a lot of people, the question on their mind is sort of what the next steps are for if they did fund projects on Catalyst. We will answer those questions. That is part of our discussion this evening. But I thought before we get into that, I wanted to give you a little bit of an intro of like why Molecule decided to build Catalyst, why we felt it was necessary. Because for those of you who don't know, Molecule has these 3 different arms. We have just launched Pump Science, which I think is probably where a lot of our audiences come from. It's been a super interesting project. Our other arm has been Catalyst. So Pump Science is sort of speculation around longevity experiments with worms and flies. Currently, I know the experimental protocol is building out as we speak. But Catalyst was a lot more sort of focused on these integrations between like how does DeSci plug into like traditional institutions. So it's these, instead of like episodic experiments like worms, these are more fully fledged research projects with researchers at very well established universities. And it's a whole experimental sort of design with the express goal of sort of creating novel IP, and of course solving a real world problem, as I think many of you would like to do. In exchange for funding these projects, should everything, all the negotiations go to plan, people who have funded the projects on Catalyst will receive intellectual property tokens, which grant you governance in the project progression. So sort of as the project progresses, maybe, for example, Danny gets some interesting data and he needs a chemist, then it's like, okay, who would be the right chemist? Does anyone have expertise in here? Can the community contribute? So it's really just like leveraging this hive mind, bringing in community into science that, like, I think for me at least, I always believe that science has been kept very far away from the people that it is intended to impact. And so what DeSci is trying to do is really shrink that gap. So that was kind of how we were feeling about science over at Molecule. And we decided to build Catalyst to just be like a one home for all of these projects. They could be uploaded, have the details about what the project was about, the team, what the IP strategy was, and all of those sort of things. And then people could fund. And the funding was priced on a token bonding curve. So early participants were incentivized. So that was kind of the design. It, very interestingly enough, was an idea that our 2 co-founders had years ago. I think it was like 2019. They tried to launch something very similar. They missed their funding target by a lot. Had to sort of sit down, not humble themselves, but kind of had to go, okay, we need to do a lot more building and thinking before we relaunch this. And this year we decided to relaunch Catalyst. So that's a bit about the history, about why we felt it needed to be built. I think another core reason of why it needed to be built is the fact that getting funding for a researcher can be really hard. And so I wanted to maybe open the floor to Danny and Jonathan, if you're available to talk, about, your experience in trying to get funding for research projects in like traditional systems.
I'll give Jonathan a chance. I'm not sure he's hearing us. So I'll start.
Yeah. I was going to say, for those of you who don't know, apparently there's been a really big storm where Jonathan is living. And so he was trying to join the call, but I know that there are technical and weather difficulties. So yeah, we will see when he can join. But yeah, you go ahead, Danny.
Yes, so funding in science is challenging, and I don't want to make it look too bleak, because funding does work, it just not works as well as we want it to. And a lot of times bringing new ideas to the front is really difficult, and it's really difficult for new investigators to get into new fields, and it's a lot easier to get funding for something that's already established and working, which isn't always the most interesting part. And this is where the connection with crypto is amazing, because when we judge grants, and I sit on some of these committees and I judge these works, it's usually the score given to can this transform humanity isn't as high as, well, is this completely 100% certain and valid, and will even grants that are targeting high-risk projects, and there are a few, a lot of them say they target high-risk projects, not a lot of them actually do. So it's more challenging, and it's great to see other funding opportunities and a community that's willing to take risks on projects that are really interesting. First of all, to a broader audience, because as scientists, we're also humans, but we don't always represent the broader community as well. We have our own, each their own areas of interest and favorite methods and favorite organisms. And sometimes the broader community has slightly different ambitions. So I think it's a very, very good complementary system. I don't want it to sound very bleak, like there is no funding in science. There is traditional funding, but it is lacking in many places, and it's great to have more options.
Amazing. I think, Logan, it would be great if you could walk us through the process of how funding occurs on Catalyst before we jump into the specific scientific projects.
Sure, happy to walk you through. So step by step, behind the scenes, what does it look like if you're trying to get a project listed on Catalyst? So the idea behind Catalyst was that, people with early stage ideas or projects could go put it out to the community, try to validate their idea, see what sticks, what people like, and then collect money for that project. That being said, the projects that exist on Catalyst, so the money that you're raising specifically is not a grant. It's used to form either a sponsored research agreement or a joint research agreement. Some sort of contractual, obligation is there in which the token holders and the community will have rights to the underlying IP so that they can, govern the process and move it forward. So you've got a few different players. You've got the researcher who's working on the science. You've got the university, which is normally where the researcher is affiliated. You've got an entity that will take the place of the sponsor. So the sponsor is the party that's trying to, get the research done. They're the one that's interested. They're the one that's countersigning these agreements. And then you've got the funders and the community. So you've got this contractual arrangement that needs to happen between the universities, usually their tech transfer offices or TTO, and the sponsor. So what happens is, you'll negotiate that contract, but oftentimes with these projects, you don't already enter a negotiation prior to funding. First, you're also trying to see if you can even get money available. And if you're a university, you don't necessarily want to spend your time negotiating something if there's no money behind it anyway. So you might get an answer of like, okay, well, come talk to me when you're ready to come to the table. So it's a little bit of a give and take on both sides, right? Like trying to signal demand, but also trying to keep your relationship with the university going so that when you actually do have the funds ready to go, it doesn't take so long to negotiate. But, everybody moves at their own speeds, and I don't think any of us could have predicted the speed at which we moved on Catalyst this week. So the good thing for us is for a lot of the projects that have been on there, we already have pre-existing relationships with these CTOs. We've been in communication with the researchers in the university for months with these projects. So everybody's now kind of spinning their wheels, I think, as quickly as possible to make it all happen. But when you fund a project on Catalyst, while the curve is live or while the funding is ongoing, you're able to put your money in and you're able to take your money out to signal like, do I support this project? Maybe you do in the beginning, maybe then you read a doc, you're like, no, not for me anymore. You want to take your money out, that's fine. And once a funding goal has been hit, the money that has been raised in the bonding curve is locked, because obviously you're going into a negotiation for the contract for X amount of money for this project. And if everybody could just withdraw their funds at this time, then there wouldn't be anything available for the research, right? So during the negotiation phase, the funds are locked. And then we have a 3-month deadline where we will negotiate. And if the contract isn't negotiated within the 3 months, then everything automatically goes back to the funders and the project no longer proceeds. However, if we're successful, we reach our funding goal, we successfully negotiate the contract, then the funders will be able to claim their IPTs, the project will be able to start, and then the university and the sponsor, will engage in this long-term relationship. And normally the payments are made to the university on some sort of milestone basis based on certain deliverables and deadlines that are met. And during that time, the sponsor makes sure everything gets done from an operational perspective, and then the funders are there supporting the project, participating in governance, voting on which supplier to use, or kind of like maybe which path to go down or which conference to attend, things like that. So really tried to make it something for everyone, where researchers can get their funds, we can sponsor great work, and people can be, somewhat entertained and engaged while science kind of like unfolds in front of their eyes. So that's the basis of Catalyst and the kind of mechanics that we have there. So obviously a lot of moving parts, a lot of parties, a lot of, individuals, institutes, some people who are moving very quickly, some are moving very slowly, but we hope everybody, I guess, is patient with us while we try to get all this rolling this week.
If I can add that from my side, Molecule did an amazing work here, really coming and negotiating and reading, and every university has its own quirks and the way they manage things, and really diving into the details and making a good contract that I think is now up for signatures. That's the thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I was like, maybe that's also, I was going to say that the update. So I think the question of the hour, the question of the day has been when token. And so for those of you watching, as you can hear from Logan's explanation, these processes are obviously quite complex, and each of the projects will move at a different speed. So these tokens will be launched, not launched, but delivered or claimable at different speeds. And the big sort of crux there is when the agreement is signed. We are absolutely in contact with you. We've got a Twitter page going. We've got a Telegram group going. We're giving you the updates as soon as we know them. At the moment, there are no token claimable dates that I can guarantee to anyone, and I don't want to set any false expectations. But as Danny was saying, is that the contract is pretty much ready for signatures. And so we are hoping that that is going to be our first IPT launch from Catalyst. But as I said, no guarantees, because these processes are complicated, to say the least. But yeah, welcome, Jonathan.
Hey, Ella.
Hey. I would love it if you could maybe give a little intro. So Jonathan's another
Yeah.
researcher that's been funded on Catalyst.
Yeah, exciting. I think this is my second time around kind of through this platform. And so, but yeah, thanks for the invite and apologize for the difficulties of getting on. But so the project that we were funded for is the Project Prima Donna. This is a collaboration with Dr. Hanala Ruler-Baker as well as Dr. Julie Matthew here at the University of Washington. And so really what we're trying to do is develop groundbreaking therapy to regenerate the tooth enamel. So that's the hardest part of your tooth, the white part of your tooth. And it naturally does wear down over time, especially during the aging process, and can lead to increased cavities and sensitivity. And, once it's lost forever. There's no way of getting it back. And so what our team has done is we've created a method to grow these enamel producing cells in the laboratory. And our plan is to test these cells out in animal models to see if they can effectively regenerate the enamel. Obviously, if we can successfully do this, many of the pathways that we recognize, and some of them are on their landing page, but it could pave a way for developing new therapies, as well as cell-based therapies that can really help rebuild the enamel of our teeth. And so I think this is just exciting, just to bring something where you start in a basic Petri dish all the way into actually clinical translation, which is kind of where my expertise will come into this project. So I really appreciate all of the funders, and we're looking forward to kind of reaching our milestones as we go along to kind of give some pretty interesting as well as exciting data to the community.
Amazing. How did you feel when you got the email that your project had been funded?
Yeah. So, I don't know if I should like that. We get a lot of rejections, right? So a lot of times the first time when you say your project got funded, the first thing we think is, okay, someone's trying to, fool us, it's kind of scam us a little bit, what's going on. But when I saw it was with Logan and Ella, I think it's always good when, as researchers, we work so hard with a goal in mind that, people will kind of see that goal and the possibilities that project can give to actually our society, right? And so obviously there's a lot of projects out there, but especially as a dentist myself, I think just being able to possibly in the near future provide a different kind of a tool set for dentists as well as other professionals to do that. I think it was just exciting because it was like, okay, this is the first start, right? This is the first start for things to come. And, what better way to do it when, especially when you get a chance to meet the people that actually fund you and just have the discussion to really understand what's, in my opinion, relevant to a lot of research that sometimes can go missing. So I think it was just a combination of excitement as well as concern, because now we actually have to do the work, right, at the same time. And, we plan everything, but everything's on paper. Now we have to actually bring it into action. And so I think, we're very excited about kind of starting this new phase. And, Dr. Ruler-Baker and I, and as well as Dr. Matthew, have been wanting to do this for quite some time. And so I think it's just exciting just how fast that process went and that we could actually finally get to do it. So.
Amazing. Dan, as I say, I've actually realized we've got a Daniel and a Dan in the chat. Dan Hussey from ValleyDAO. I would love to know about the atmosphere at ValleyDAO. So actually maybe as a pre-intro is ValleyDAO has had an insane week. They had Project HempKnit that was up on Catalyst. That closed its funding. They launched another project on Catalyst quite swiftly afterwards. And that project raised 67 ETH in 26 minutes, which, yeah, I was going to say, I think I was doing the mental conversion, and that's sort of over $200,000 in 26 minutes, which I want to take it up with Guinness World Book of Records, because that's got to be the shortest amount of time that is taken to crowdfund a scientific project. But yeah, I'd love to hear about like the atmosphere in your team as that was happening.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time. One thing, like looking at the inside from the team and kind of expressing it to the broader audience, is that like a ton of work went into leading up to those 20 minutes. And it's really gratifying and like really exciting for everyone who helped, source and qualify this deal. A lot of due diligence went into it before, we ever like introduced it to Catalyst. And it's like, they're both really exciting projects. They're both unique and have like really unique benefits. They both have very tangible milestones in the near term that this funding can now unlock. And I think everyone in Valley DAO is just stoked because this can happen again and again. There's no shortage of like really great projects that could help the world. And having, fast access to capital with, people behind it to help source like really quality deals and kind of oversee the contracting and oversee the progress of the research. It's like a magic formula. And we're just like so excited to be a part of this wave.
And then Danny, you're last. What was the feeling when you got the email?
So for me, it wasn't the email. I saw it, DeSci starting to trend on Twitter. So I checked the page and saw a few small ones and then refreshed a few hours later and saw, oh, I got funded. Yeah.
Okay, I love that. You literally discovered it organically. You were like, hey, there's my research project. Oh, by the way, it's funded. I love that. Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. For us, it was a crazy day. I think we had 6 projects up live. Actually, one of them had been funded already, but, the other 5 filled up within a day. And I was just saying, the atmosphere inside our team was like one of just like pure elation. It was like, I think we'd spent so much time, as you were kind of saying, Dan, of like, there's so much time that goes into the moment before that moment. And so for us, it was like super incredible. And I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, it's like funding good science. That's what we're trying to make happen. So
yeah. maybe Ella can add like onto what Dan said, in the sense that, there's a lot of work behind the scenes, a lot of time, a lot of hours that goes into shaping these projects. I mean, when it comes to science, like a lot of the times, you can only maybe do like one good experiment because it takes so much time, so much money. You always have to be really careful with like how you design it. So the projects, once they go on, they are shaped already quite heavily. They've had a lot of input, and I think it's really cool that they, come out of the DAOs as well, which already has like a big group of people who are interested in the subject and who oftentimes are subject matter experts weighing in. And, we had a few projects up on Catalyst in the beginning. And for us, of course, like it was also a little bit of an experiment, right? Like, does anybody care about research if we present it in this way? Can we present it in a way that is able to connect with people and resonate? And I have to say, obviously, in the summer when we first launched the projects, we didn't necessarily get the attention that we thought we would. So then it was like, okay, well, maybe we should focus and shift efforts elsewhere. But that didn't mean that we didn't have other, projects that could have been listed. I think we have conversations with representatives from the different DAOs every week about potential projects to list, and everybody kind of thinks like, okay, but is there demand? Does anybody care? So the fact that there's the attention that there is now is just so amazing. I mean, obviously we wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for all the people who took the time to come to Catalyst, look at the projects, support the researchers. So I guess, yeah, it's just a really satisfying feeling knowing that people are out there who do like what they see. And I guess it's just on all of us now to make sure that we give everybody the best experience using these products, right? That like, this is science. It's a little bit of a marathon, not a sprint, to be able to get some of this data and move things forward. But hopefully we'll, keep each other entertained along the way and feeling supported and empowered.
Yeah. We've got a question, and like we suspected, number one question is when of the launches of these IPTs are going to happen. So updates from our side as well is that all of these projects kind of their launch dates are super independent of each other. So, when one project is able to launch its IPTs is not relevant to another project. In Danny's case, we're hoping that it's going to be soon. In the next couple of days, we're just finalizing the last little details. But if you want to stay up to date, we've got the Catalyst Twitter channel, we've got a Telegram, and we've obviously got the Molecule Twitter, and we will be sending updates. There has also, with great attention comes many scammers. So please also be very, very cautious and aware. All information about the tokens will only come through our official channels. Team members will not DM you, any of those things. I mean, it's been crazy. I had a colleague of mine that is now, there's a full AI voice replicator, and he's calling people. So yeah, just want to really reiterate to people to be safe, and to only listen to our official communications. But sorry, that's a bit of a downer vibe. But I would like to maybe move on to Dan. Could you explain what each of the projects from ValleyDAO are?
Sure. I'll start with HempKnit. So HempKnit starts with a problem, and that's, we want sustainable natural fiber clothing that doesn't use animals or petroleum products, but doesn't cost more and functions really well. Like there's a huge demand for that. And also a lot of people, feel very fondly about hemp as a fiber. It's super sustainable. It grows in more places than cotton, uses like way less water. Problem with hemp fibers is that they make textiles that are a little bit coarse and heavy, and they don't have the best water retention, properties. So what we're doing is engineering enzymes to chemically alter the hemp fibers themselves. So we'll get like a softer, more pliable, flexible, lighter fabric that'll be like really great experience to wear, but also is made from this amazing, regenerative source. And the institution we're partnering with is ACIB out of Austria. They're a biotech powerhouse, specifically in the area of industrial biotech and enzymes. And, Georg, the lead researcher, has like decades of experience in publications in this area and like a really great angle. So that's HempKnit in a nutshell. I think in the next, few months, once he gets started and his team, we'll be able to validate the process, validate the new enzymes, and show some improved fibers, which will have like great IP potential coming out of it.
I know you're speaking like kind of by proxy, but for George, what was the reaction when you guys told him that it received funding?
Oh, he's been super supportive, all along. And he's, really busy, also has a big lab, many other projects. And I really give him and his team a lot of credit, and also the administration at ACIB. They have been, believers and with us the whole time. And I feel like they anticipated this day to come, and they're ready. We actually talked to them this morning about the contract, which everything is, moving as it should, and everyone is aligned. And, I see things moving, in a very positive direction really soon. And we'll get that contract signed shortly.
Amazing. So exciting. And the next project, please.
Yeah. So
yeah. I was going to say
mining, and we call it Carterforge.
Yeah.
So this is another project that is aimed towards a massive, massive problem with a solution that's like right at our fingertips if you apply biology in the right way. So, there's like all the rare earth metals and like, valuable metals you'd ever need kind of sitting in landfills. Like we produce an embarrassing amount of electronic waste as a society. And, at the same time, we're trying to extract more and more metals out of the earth to put it into new electronics. Well, the biomining Carterforge project is all about using biology to create the biochemicals that can be used to dissolve the precious metals out of this waste and then collect them. So it's like a new recycling process that's empowered by biology that will be, great for the planet and create value out of trash. So that's kind of what we're going with for that project.
Value out of trash. Crazy. Mm-hmm. So where is the sort of like intellectual property in that project?
Yeah, so that one, it'll be a new optimized process, and like I'm a patent agent. Like there's definitely patentable material in that area, and then also a lot of the secret sauce is that the biomining agents, the lixiviants, will be produced by a consortium of microorganisms. And these are, not easy to cultivate. We're working with experts who are the best in the world at doing this, but they're going to be well positioned to create like the perfect mixture of organisms and kind of cultivate them in a very specific way. And that will have, I think, very commercially relevant intellectual property when they execute on those research plans.
Interesting, yeah. Because I mean, I think like the way the intellectual property tokens were designed was that, you're creating this collective of people that are going to help coach this intellectual property to a point where it can really, I was going to use the phrase do some damage, but I meant make some change.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not basic research, either of these projects. It's applied like translational research. But, I think the funding, the research funding that we are applying, it's directed in a way that has a really good chance of creating new commercially relevant IP that'll be like very meaningful. So at least the intention's there. It's research and we'll have to, kind of see what happens. But from my perspective, we're really well positioned in both projects.
Amazing. I also wanted to just, yeah.
I was gonna say, Dan, I have to say the first time I heard the word lixiviant was reading, your project page, and I was like, that is an amazing Scrabble word.
Yeah. It is. I wanted to also just remind people that there is, sorry, I didn't actually mention at the beginning, there is a chat. If you have questions for these research, if you have questions for us about Catalyst, drop them in the chat. We're super happy to answer them. But just as a reminder. So Dan, sorry, apologies. This Danny Dan situation is getting to me. But Danny, your project basically is sort of looking at the role of the immune system in Alzheimer's development. The first time I ever spoke or sort of heard about Danny's project was the first time I realized that, or discovered that there was this link between infections that you get in your lifetime and your chances of developing Alzheimer's, which was like really crazy to me because I think, I come from a science background, and the story that I've been relentlessly told is, it's these, protein aggregates in the brain. And that was kind of the narrative that I had very much in my head about Alzheimer's. And then speaking to Danny was like, all of a sudden he was going, take yourself a step back and figure out like why those are happening. And then also look at the data. Like there's a study that Danny has referenced where I think it's the population-wide study in Taiwan. Where people were, was it 2.5 or 2.6 times?
2.56.
There we are. More likely to develop Alzheimer's disease in their lifetime, which like blew my brain. But like I think it's all good and well to sort of have that understanding, but I would really love to know like what your plan is to take that and like put into practice.
Yeah, so first of all, don't feel bad about not hearing about this. I heard it for the first time about 6 years ago when the study came and we saw in the study this brain of this really old woman. It was the only one that was completely clear of pathogens. And we asked, well, why is her brain clear of pathogens? And like you said, we now know there's like a ton of evidence that all of the amyloid plaque and tau, it's all true, but the initial driver a lot of times is pathogen infection. And if you're diagnosed with HSV and you go to your doctor and he gives you this over-the-counter antiherpetic medication, your risk profile goes back to zero. The thing is, many people with HSV will not go to the doctor. Maybe they won't even know they got it. But your body knows. You have an immune signature that tells you which pathogen you got. how is your body treating it? Is it a chronic low-grade infection? Is this something that your body is constantly exposed to? Or did your body manage to develop these super effective antibodies that prevent it from spreading? So we're really employing high throughput approaches to look at the immune systems of different people who developed Alzheimer's and people who got to really, really old age without any cognitive impairment. And we want to see two things. One thing we want to see is the signature of the immune system that did not optimally respond to these pathogens. And when your response isn't optimal, maybe at 50 or 55, that's okay. But these pathogens do get into the brain, and they get into the brain of healthy people as well. And the body keeps fighting them and fighting them and fighting them. And after a while, the brain looks like a battlefield. All these amyloid beta, they're antimicrobial peptides. There's strong evidence suggests that the brain secretes them on purpose to kind of encapsulate and prevent the spread of the virus. And that can go on for decades. But at some point, it does take a toll. If we could, 20 years earlier, say, well, actually, your blood screen shows you have an infection. It's low grade. It's something your body is managing now. But if you take this simple, non-expensive, very safe drug, you can reduce your chance of dementia. Most of your chance at this point comes from this pathogen. And we're not looking at just one because there's now high throughput methods, so we can look at many. That's one thing. That's like regulation here is never easy. But on the spectrum, this is the easier part. We're not developing a new medicine. We're taking an existing, very, very safe family of drugs and saying, based on this test, these people may benefit from taking it. That's one side. And the other side is looking at the people who got to really, really old age with no cognitive impairment and asking why. What did your body do so right, and how can I mimic that? And hopefully by finding the perfect antibodies, we can drive the immune system of everyone to respond in the same way. And this can be either a vaccine or an antibody-based cure. And there's a lot of possibilities here. But that road is much, much longer and much less safe.
I was going to say it requires a lot more input from the DeSci community, both financial and expertise. Very interesting. I mean, my Alzheimer's disease is something that I think is a very well-known topic in the DeSci community because of VitaDAO. And I think there's so many sort of different angles to approach it. So I've always found like this immune system angle really different, because I think also like you know, I did my undergrad in biochemistry, which I mean by no means makes me an expert in anything, but I remember sort of one of my first year lectures and someone putting up, like one of my lecturers putting up the diagram of like the immune system and like all of the different processes that made up the immune system, and for those of you who haven't seen it, it's like it's an insane thing. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to me that the immune system is going to be you know, this omnipotent sort of force in our lives and in our health.
Yeah, and it's so tightly linked to aging in general, not just in Alzheimer's, but in everything. Steve Horvath has his protocols now trying to regenerate the thymus and see if he can reverse actually epigenetic age with that. There's a lot of research and there's a lot of potential there.
Amazing. Cool. I would love to know, Danny, how you intend to stay in contact with your token holders and your community that you're building around your work.
I'm reasonably available on Twitter. I have like 5 followers, so it's not a big burden. I'm always happy to answer questions. If they come through Molecule, I'll be happy to do AMAs. I'm generally very much pro open science, just publish everything, just put everything on bioRxiv and let the journals handle that later. Here it's going to be a bit more problematic because, as you know, once I put something out in the public, I cannot patent it, which is not ideal in this situation. But we have ways like we did with Molecule when we need to disclose things in a more public setting without NDAs. If we can just replace the peptide sequence with peptide X, and then we can share results.
Cool. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Is that Danny is ready to communicate with his community. We will keep you updated, obviously, on when the token launches. Contract is in the works for those of you who are joining or maybe passing through this chat. We've kind of mentioned it a couple of times, but I think it's good to reiterate. We are also nearing sort of the end of our call, so I thought we'd also move back to Dan from ValleyDAO. You've had a question here. I'm going to pop it up on the chat. I'd love to get a response from you.
Yeah, this is a great question, by the way. So the question is there patentability around each of the microorganisms in the process or the consortia as a whole? And, the answer is kind of like yes to all of it. There's, a reasonable chance at getting allowed claims around the process with a very novel combination of organisms. And there's also a reasonable chance at getting claims allowed for one key organism or many that have like a surprising impact on the ability to extract and collect, metals out of waste using this process. There are rules against you can't patent a product of nature, but there's a lot of examples of people getting issued claims around an organism or a component of biology out of the context of its natural environment. And that's, I think, our area of patentability. There's never any guarantee that you'll get issued claims, but with, the research that we're doing has never been done before. And it's a pretty unique area that not a lot of people are exploring, even though it shows great promise. So all those ingredients together, I think, give us a really good chance at getting some useful IP, meaning some issued patents out of this work.
Cool. And I mean, while we were on this call, I saw a Discord notification pop up of someone saying that they had helped fund both of the ValleyDAO projects. So I would love to know from you how you guys intend to stay connected with your potential token holders.
Yeah, for sure. Discord, ValleyDAO, love it. We always have really great conversations in the ValleyDAO Discord. Telegram also, where we have active, channels going for each of these in Telegram. Personally, I'm easy to find, on X at DNA Hussey, like my last name. And we're really open and really excited to, share updates whenever we have them and get great questions and input from the community.
Cool. And then, of course, Molecule, you know where to find us. You're on our Twitter right now if you're watching this. So always shoot us a question if you need us. I think to close out, Logan, do you have any closing remarks?
Closing remarks. I think still trying to wrap my head around how all of this is possible, and just excited that we have so many people paying attention to what we're doing in DeSci at Molecule through all these different initiatives. And, just want to reiterate that we, take your support very seriously, and we will do our best to make science exciting and move forward. And ultimately, I think it's been a great week for all of us. Super happy to be here and just really grateful to be part of this team and along for the ride.
Yeah, my remarks are pretty similar. That this has been, I think, by far the best week I've ever worked at Molecule. Seeing all of this happen has been incredible. I'm so excited. We have, I know, at least 2 new projects scoped to go up on Catalyst that will also be fundraising soon. And of course, now that these projects have been funded, like this is really essentially just the first step of a very long process. And so also, as much as it is great to be excited now, it's like there's so much future for these projects. They all need to, now be executed on. And so I'm really excited to see them unfold. I think at the end of the day, for me, working in DeSci and being a passionate advocate of DeSci is, every bit of science that gets funded and progressed using the might of the crypto and the degen and the, Web3 community is really incredible. I think I made a joke to someone saying, like, if you were a degen that decided to help fund and progress science this week, at least you got something to talk about at Thanksgiving when someone in your family goes, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing on your computer all the time? And you're like, no, I'm funding science. I'm progressing the future. So you have something to talk about with your family. We're always around. Ask questions, get involved. If you're a researcher watching this, please let us know what you're working on. And if you've got projects that you'd like to get funded, we can upload them. Well, I mean, you can upload them, but we can get that process going. And for the people who have funded these projects, once again, I will tell you that we will communicate through all relevant channels about when token. Okay, and Dan and Danny, any closing remarks before we sign off for the evening?
No, thank you
I
so
think
much.
you covered everything. Yeah. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Yeah, maybe if you want to give a one-liner to the people who funded your project.
One-liner. I hope it works.
You heard it here first.
And Dan, one-liner for the people?
Yeah. Token soon.
Token soon. I like it.
TM.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Have a beautiful evening or day or wherever you are. Yeah, let's fund some science. Cool, guys. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.